Welcome to my part 1 of 4 crash course tutorial on 3D animations, where I will teach you how to create them from scratch. By the end of this 4-part series, you will be able to understand at least a very basic level and also create your very own 3D animations. In this first video, you will need to know first what 3D is and how you can identify what is 3D and what isn't. 3D or 3 dimensions refers to a 3 spatial dimensions consisting of width, height and depth. The physical world and everything you see in it is 3-dimensional. If you compare 1D, it can be seen based on one axis, either X or Y, or anything in between. 2D are shapes with 2 dimensions, such as width and height. As an example of a 2D shape is a rectangle or a circle. 3D, on the other hand, is one step above 2D, with adding an extra axis, which is the Z-axis. It creates depth to certain shapes or images, which are pretty much just as how we look at things in our everyday life. Today, 3D graphics are utilized everywhere in all types of industries such as architecture, engineering, healthcare, advertising and marketing, science, gaming, films, and you guessed it, animations. Tons more industry use them, but for now we're just gonna compare these type of work that are interrelated within these industries. If you are learning 3D, a few of these steps can be implemented in all the other industries. One of the most common is, of course, modeling. This is the most basic step that can be used in almost any of these industries, and the other following step can also be found but not as common. 3D modeling is a process of developing a mathematical coordinate-based representation of any surface of an object in 3 dimensions via specialized software by manipulating edges, vertices and polygons in a simulated 3D space. Back in the day, artists had to place and coordinate these vertices just to create a shape. But nowadays, we have advanced software such as Maya or Blender or others that lets us be more creative and less technical and calculative as an artist. The way we model objects or characters varies depending on what type of model we are creating and also for what purpose, whether it is for animations, games, or others. But we will cover this further in my upcoming videos. Next is the texturing phase. Texturing in 3D animation is the process of dressing up your 3D models with 2D pictures. Texture artists oversee giving 3D objects physical characteristics. The goal is to match the model's surface to its concept art or real-world equivalent. Then we go into the rigging phase. Rigging is the process of creating bones for your characters or model. These bones are strategically placed based on the type of characters you have, and they act as a tool to move your characters and bring them to life. The rigging steps are most commonly used in animating characters for games and films. Of course, rigging can vary from simple to extreme complexity, but it all depends on what level of control you need for your animations. This phase in the animation pipeline is one of the most important part because to create stunning animations, proper rigging is needed or else the animators will not be able to create smooth animations. This brings us to the next phase, which is animations. As the name defines it, animation is the phase in which the rigged 3D models are manipulated to bring the characters to life. Every character in every scene, in any animations that you see, there is most likely a team of animators that are pulling the midnight oil creating them. And speaking of seeing these characters, you probably wouldn't be able to see them if there's no lighting. Which brings us to the next step in the pipeline, which is lighting. Lighting in animation works similarly to real-life production lightings, to some sort of degree. But of course, there are additional steps to mimic the real-life lighting, such as the reflections, the ambience, and color temperature. Now, with proper lighting, beautiful animations, 3D models, textures, materials, we'll need to capture and transform them into a video format for the audience to watch, which is rendering. At a basic level, rendering is the process of processing the 3D scene that you created into a sequence of photos. that form videos when played in series. A lot of things need to be considered before hitting that render button, because rendering in 3D animation takes a lot of time. For example, if you're rendering a 60-second animations at 25 frames per second, that's 25 multiplied by 60 seconds, which is 1500 images. Imagine that scene renders 20 minutes per frame compared to 10 minutes per frame. It would take 30,000 minutes or 21 days compared to 10 days. Once you are done rendering, your audience can now enjoy your work. Now that you have a basic understanding of what 3D is and what the steps involved are, we are ready to dive into our first two steps, which is the modeling and texturing. So this is how it looks like when you open up Autodesk Maya. To navigate through the viewport, you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse button to zoom in and out, holding the alternate key with the left mouse button to rotate, and alternate with the middle mouse button to move the viewport around, just like this. You can also use the cube on the top right to navigate through the viewport. You can click the front, you can click the other button to go to the other sides. You can go to the top, you can go to the front, or if you want, you can just use cube to go through. You can click the in-betweens to go in-betweens, just like this. And that's basically how you navigate through the viewport in Autodesk Maya. Now if you see the shelves up here, you can see all types of words, includes rigging and such. But now I want you to focus more on the poly modeling, which is this one. Here you can see all types of shapes from left to right, and try to click one of them. So I'm gonna click sphere. Now you can see if the sphere is appearing in the viewport. You can rotate through it, and when you select it, it's going to be highlighted and shows all the topology of the shapes. And if you notice on the side here, it's called the outliner. You can see the objects in the list kind of view. Here I'm going to rename the object as a sphere, so whenever I click it, it's going to highlight. This will come in handy if you have thousands of objects in your scene and you want to find a specific one. It's going to be a lot easier. So this is going to be the move tool. This is where you can use the arrows to move your objects, either X, Y or Z axis. The shortcut for this is the key W on your keyboard, so you don't have to click on the side, and just click W and the move tool will appear. Now if you look on the right side of the screen, you'll see the coordinates of the object that you selected. So when I press 0, it will go back to the origin, which is the 0. Now I'm gonna create one more shape, which is the square. Of course now you don't see it, but it's there, it's inside the sphere. Let's pull it out. Here you can see the cube. So let's try to create all the other shapes. This is another one, a cylinder, cube, a cone, donut, plane, and a circular kind of thing. So these are few of the basic shapes that you can just create from the shelf, and from here you can start to create your very own shapes or very own characters to your liking. You see here, you can even type your own words and Maya will create it in 3D for you. This will come in handy for other projects, and you can also import SVG files here. So another great feature in Maya is when you have a scene that is too large and you've lost your object, like this is just an example. You can go to the outliner, find your object, and you just press the letter F, and it will bring you right back to where your object is. So this is another tool. It's called the rotate tool. It's used to rotate your objects either from the Z-axis, the Y-axis, and also the Z-axis. You can find this on the left side of your screen, or if you just want to use the shortcut, it's using the letter E. And same with moving the object. It also has the coordinates on the right, which is the rotate here. And next is the scale tool. The scale tool also does scaling from the X, the Z, and the Y. And the coordinates can be found here. And if you change it to 0, it's gonna disappear. So if you want it to appear normal, you can just press 1 and it's gonna be there. Now try to press the spacebar. It will appear into 4 different screens, which is the top, front, side, and also the perspective. In order to go into each of the scenes, you can just hover the mouse there and press the mouse button. So now I'm in the perspective view. So now I just created a plane, and you can't see the plane because it's inside the sphere. So another great button you can use is pressing the 4 button, which makes everything invisible, but you can still see the wireframes. So I just deleted the plane. I'm gonna recreate the plane again. Now press 4 and you can see the plane is inside. Now I'm just gonna scale it up. I'm gonna scale the plane. So this is going to be the plane for my object. Press 5 to see it in solid mode. So I'm just gonna carefully lift up this sphere so it's sitting right on top of the plane. Now, in order to change the shape of your object, there are 3 things that you might want to consider using. The first one is by selecting the face. By selecting the face, you're able to select individual faces of the objects based on the wireframe. So here I'm going to try to scale one of the face, or maybe you can rotate, or you can even move up, down to change the shape of your object. So this is one of the ways. So next, we can choose the edge. So by choosing the edge, you can select the wireframe itself. Actually, you can select individual lines, same as before. You can just rotate, scale, or you can move. Right now I'm just moving it. You can double click to select the whole lines. Double click. Yeah. So the next one is the vertex. Vertex, as the name mentions, you select the vertices of your objects. It's the point where the edge intercepts itself. So basically you can just select one point and just move it around. So there's 3 main things you can do: selecting the face, selecting the edges, and selecting the vertex or vertices. So let's say I'm gonna try to modify the shape a bit, the shape of the sphere. So this is just the basic understanding of how to modify an object. So you can try to experiment around, you can play around with the tools, see what kind of shapes you can get. Now that you have all the basic understanding of the software or how the software works in general, I think we're ready to move on to creating our very own first 3D animation. So that will be the next video. So click subscribe, or if you're interested, you can just watch the next video. I'll be covering from the modeling to texturing, rigging, animation, rendering, and also the compositing side of the animation. So be sure to stick around, and I will see you on the next video.